today, I guess it's no secret that there are more and more, if you like, data-driven organizations, but they are also, by their nature, I suppose, experiencing problems with the data in terms of data storage, data management. And if I'm right in thinking the problems are, the base of the problems is down to the fact that they're potentially using older, I won't call them necessarily legacy, but older solutions that just aren't fit for purpose with the quantity and speed of the data required today. Is that correct?
I would say so. Do you want to go first, Matt, or should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we see a huge data explosion. One of the reasons why is more and more data is coming off of electronic instruments, whether it's a cryo-EM microscope or a telescope or a satellite out in space or on your cell phone. You know, the resolutions are going up a lot faster than the price of storage is coming down. And so what we have done is try and work at ways to quickly move the data that's relevant to the user, keep that on what we call a hot tier, and then tier it off to colder tiers. And that's why we partnered with Spectra. I think they have the best tools on the sort of, they would say they're on the colder or the archive side of the spectrum. So we've been working with them about 8 or 9 years. And that's what we do is manage the data via policy. And then I'll let Matt talk for Spectra.
Yeah, I would say that the people that are creating this data, there's really two camps, and there's an advanced camp that's very good at collecting metadata, knowing what their data is and going to find it. Major League Baseball happens to be a phenomenal, you know, if you think about how many Major League Baseball games there are in a season, but that station broadcasts 24 hours a day, 365. What do they fill the non-game times with? Well, they do highlight reels, and they can go back and type in that Graham hit a home run, you know, let's do a home run thing on Graham. They could pull every home run that Graham ever hit throughout his entire season. And then they could say, well, how about home runs at Fenway Park? Yes, they can do that. So they've collected all this metadata and they know what to do and know how to find it. There's the other side of this, that there's people collecting data off of these electronic devices and storing it and really not knowing what it is. And that's one of those things where we want people to be able to, yeah, store it cheaply because you don't know what it is yet, but then also go back and figure out what it is and when you can use it and how you can apply it and build greater science with it.
Okay, so there's, I guess, whether they already are, the danger is that existing data management storage solutions are, I know there's always a bottleneck somewhere in the IT infrastructure, but at the moment, potentially the storage or the data management more widely is as a problem with what people want to do with all this data. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I would say it this way is most people are going to collect it, they're going to store it. But if they can't monetize it, it wasn't worth it storing it, right? I mean, yes, they store it because they could monetize it, but if they don't monetize it, why'd they keep it?
Yeah,
right?
Then I would say then there's also the fear of the unknown. We specialize in working with a lot of life science type companies, and they might be working on something and put it on the shelf and know they found it, and then 18 months later have to go back and retrieve it, redo the experiment maybe, or maybe they're doing runs on a high performance computer, but they don't remember where they got the data sets from. They don't remember the environment parameters. They don't remember the inputs and outputs. So what we do is to try and help them tag data with metadata so you can go back and reproduce events, find things and things like that. But like Matt said, it's amazing how much stuff just ends up on the floor, but no, everybody's afraid to throw it out, right? You know, whether it's UAV video over Ukraine or along the border, things like that, or whether it's satellite information, a lot of it people just, they keep or throw out, but they don't really know what they have. They haven't made a conscious decision about what to do with it.
Okay, so and that's the sort of background to the fact that Arcitecta and Spectralogic, you've come together, and it sounds from one of the early answers you've been working together for a while. So perhaps you can give me a bit of background to the collaboration, but also you've come together particularly now to produce two solutions, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But just I suppose the background to the partnership would be a good place to start.
Okay, well, I actually joined the company, joined Arcitecta, and we partnered with Spectra going back about 8 or 9 years. And Matt was actually the key guy, CTO, behind Black Pearl. And where we loved it from the outside is Black Pearl was very different than all the other products produced by tape companies, in that it was a gateway product. So it's possible to sort of blend before there's sort of a wall between this is hot storage and this is cold storage. With Black Pearl, you can start using it in more of an active archive sense, if you will. And it's been a good partnership in the sense that we started with them about 8 years ago. They've slowly added a lot of features to Black Pearl. And I would say they're about on their 4th or 5th generation of it now. So why don't you tell a little bit more about Black Pearl?
So Black Pearl can be object or NAS attached disk. But when we get to scale, one of those things that we look at is when you really start to scale out Black Pearl, the next thing the customer is going to ask for is, I need to be able to find what I put on there. I need to be able to heat stuff up. I need to be able to automate some processes. And that's where Arcitecta comes in. So the mix actually works really well for us when we start to scale. We want somebody driving us above with a lot of intelligence about that data so that they can do operational things, bring data to a spin down disk tier off a tape where the disk tier is powered down, waiting for access. And in this case, that these guys, Arcitecta, can do that. So it's always been a good fit. Graham and I would joke with each other that this product idea was in my head 8 or 9 years ago. I just kept asking for it. How about if we just do this? How about if we just do this? And finally we got to, hey, this is what it is, and it really does work. It really has scale for our customer base.
Okay, so without further ado, it'd be good to understand the two solutions in a bit more detail. So we've got Arcitecta MediaFlux plus Spectralogics. Was it Black Pearl NAS is one of the solutions. So can you talk me through if you like, the architecture, the components of that solution, and then we can maybe look at the benefits those bring.
Okay, yeah, okay, I can start. So at the high level, MediaFlux is in the data path between the user space and the storage space, and it doesn't matter whether the storage space is hot, whether it's on isolons or GPFS or other high performance storage, or whether it's on cooler storage. But in the old days, going back 8 years, Black Pearl was basically a gateway to tape, but we would still manage it by policy. But Black Pearl has evolved, and so they've got hotter and hotter tiers in it. So it's possible to get what we call quality of service much, much better than standard legacy storage devices. So for example, for us, and we'll talk about the other solution in a second, but if you're looking at Black Pearl as, let's say, an object store through S3, we can read, write, and present out S3 packets to users and stuff. But the great ability is we can scale it. So we can add multiple Black Pearls that MediaFlux is driving. And we've got customers that have done that. And we can scale out to billions of objects, which I think is unique in the industry. So we have customers with one customer in Europe has 18 billion files under management. So the scale is truly in the big data sense. And the great thing about partnering with Spectra, because their legacy over 40 years is in the tape business, by definition, most customers that go through all the rigors of putting in a tape library are very competent with big data. So they're coming out of the big data space, and we're coming out of the big data management space. So it makes sense that we continue to evolve our products together.
Yeah. So Black Pearl is a base platform, and then on top of that base platform, we give you personalities. It could be CIFS, NFS, S3, and I always say the market's going to go to S3 for archive, and the reason being is because file systems have lived their life. They're in when we talk massive data sets, and when you put data away and you're not working on it, putting it in a file system versus putting it in object storage, there's two big differences. File systems are designed to have a read, write, modify. I can read it, I can modify it, I can write it back out. Object storage is kind of immutable in most cases, especially with object lock, and it has the nomenclature of put it away. I've put it, I get it, and the file system will be now the place where the sandbox happens. So when customers want to work on something, they will bring it into their high-speed file system, and they will do fast Fourier transform on it, or they will do rendering on it, or they'll do some kind of operation on it and create a result. Where Arcitecta is going to be in there watching that come in and out through their system, coming down to us, possibly heating stuff up, possibly, but also making sure there's always stable data, high throughput as they scale out. That large tape library and the hundreds of petabytes behind them, they're scaling that system as they add nodes to their system. So even though they're serving S3 out to possibly a file system, they have this massive scalability as they go off to the right.
Okay, and I mean, I think as you've both described what goes on, you've alluded to some of the benefits, but it'd be good to understand, if you like, what this solution does that shall we say, previous solutions, or what else is out on the market it's not able to, what are the USPs, if you like, of what you're doing?
Well, I would say we've built on 8 years of working together. Like we've talked about, Black Pearl's much further along. It's on its 4th or 5th generation. They have different speed and different capacity models, and they've got hotter storage, right? You can go all the way up to flash. So you can have spinning disk, spin down disk, tape. But I'd say what's really different is, so we've sold together on 3 continents, but it's being sort of disconnected in the sense that Spectra will sell Black Pearl and tape libraries or other products, and we'll sell Media Flux. What we'd like to do is have it so we've tested a lot of this together, make it more accessible to people through the channels. It's more of a channel type model. So, but people will buy it knowing that we're on the latest Black Pearl driver, knowing it's integrated. And one of the challenges that both of us face is we're relatively small companies compared with some of these massive
Three-letter, yeah.
out there. Yeah, it is. So they're selling an integrated solution, whereas we're basically what we call the best athlete solution. We like to think we have the best data management tools, and I know Spectra has the best archive solutions out there. So, but by putting them together, we're providing the customers with more of a turnkey solution, so we can better compete with some of these big monolithic companies that are buying out all the smaller companies, right?
And I would add to that it's certainly a lighter. I consider it a lighter workload on the IT staff. When you go back to the products that we're doing archiving off of HPC sites like GPFS, Luster, there's one owned by HPE, there's one owned by IBM. You're going to dedicate multiple people to managing that system. In this case, it's a much lighter lift from an IT staff perspective. They're not having, especially if they're going to S3 or object storage in the background, it's a much easier management view. And then also collecting of that metadata to know what you have, right? When you look at these large systems that were developed 20 or 30 years ago, great, they can move data to tape, they can get data off a primary store, push it down to an archive tier. I have a customer that has moved the data for 30 years and has no idea what those files are. No idea, right? But they've had to move them. It's a DOE lab in the US, and they have to move that data, but they have no idea what that data is. The guy retired 20 years ago. And so discovery of that lost data, it could be important, it could be trash. The example we brought up is one of the satellite companies threw away about 50% of their data because it was cloud cover. Right, so they went through and looked to see how much data do you have, how much of it is the cloud cover, what good is cloud cover data?
Yeah.
When all I have is a big gray screen. But they didn't know it at the beginning. So it's those kind of things when we look at these data sets is, or can I go into a genomic, a bio IT company and find a genome pattern that matches something very, very specific, and then dig those results out and find out more metadata about those certain people that have that certain gene in their system.
Yeah, and Phil, if I could just build off of that. So Matt was talking a little bit about they don't know what they have. On the other hand, let's go back to his analogy of the satellite data. We started the call talking about weather, like a lot of people do, and talking about tornadoes and things like that. So what's very interesting is if you have a tornado and it hits some small town east of here in Kansas or something, then what's really valuable is that what's valuable to the satellite company or the people selling the data is to be able to show today what happened, and yesterday, 10 years ago, what it looked like, 5 years ago, what it looked like. You can see the town kind of grow, and this big tornado comes in and flattens it. But unless you can get that if you can find those images and get them up on the 6 o'clock news, it's old news. So that data has a value, just like Matt was talking about with the baseball games, if you can find it very quickly and make it accessible to those that want it. Because if you can't get the picture of the little town before and after up on the news by 6 o'clock, it's worthless, or the bombings in Ukraine or anything with current events. You have to be able to find those needles in the haystack very quickly. That's what our tool enables. And the great thing about Black Pearl, as it can go a gateway all the way out to tape, the quality of service is actually a lot faster on tape than many other products. We're going to talk a little bit about S3 type models, but if you put things out in S3 with basically a service level agreement to get your data back in 4 hours or 12 hours, it's going to take a long time to get it. With tape, even in worst case, it's probably like 9-10 minutes type of thing to pull it all the way through the system. So you're actually getting a lot faster quality of service, even if you go all the way out to tape to pull up these data sets.
Yeah, and to add to that, the pipe, right? when you look at these data sets that people think, okay, we've been possibly pushed to the cloud, or we'd like to do something in the cloud. Pipe cost is a big one. Egress charges, pipe costs, those are all big things. It's not to say we're against the cloud. Our point has always been, I think Graham would agree with this, is if you're going to put data in the cloud, do not leave it as your only copy, because the next thing that's going to happen is your data is going to be held hostage. You put all your data, and when we're talking about petabytes of data, your data is going to be held hostage. You put 10 petabytes into the cloud, your egress charges will bankrupt you to get that 10 petabytes back if you ever have to move. And I was looking at I have Apple Drive and I have a Google Drive and I probably have a Synology over there. I've noticed that my price per 2 terabyte drive, which is what I have on both systems, has never gone down in price. For 4 years, I pay $2.99 a month. I'm the dummy right here, right? And that's what happens when you do this with cloud, is you can put your data in there and it's good, but if you have to pull it back, that's where you're going to get hit with the cost. Now, the value of putting your data in the cloud and keeping a local copy is twofold. One is, to Graham's point, I'm going to beat the cloud SLA by hours. But also now I can stand up compute in the cloud and do a burst in the cloud and get some results and maybe just pull the results down, right? And I may have a new tool in the cloud that maybe I don't even own yet, closed captioning, render, facial recognition, something like that I could really exploit in the cloud and their compute, because I need that job only once a month. That's, now you've all of a sudden built a system where you have 2 copies of your data, you have geographic separation, you have possibly genomic or genetic diversity. You could be on 2 different types of media. You've protected your data really well. And Arcitecta knows which one to go get, which one's going to be the fastest, which one's going to be the cheapest. And so they can deliver that data to you.
Okay, it might seem greedy that you haven't given me so much information, but I know there's another solution. So please, can you tell me about that? So this is, if I got it correct, is Arcitecta MediaFlux plus Spectra Logic, Black Pearl object storage. Is that right? So
correct. Yeah, I would say one of the reasons we did that, as a lot of people are saying, S3 is clearly evolving to be a very common interface that people want to deal with. One of the challenges is, in a lot of people's heads, when they think of S3, they think of the cloud, whereas a lot of people will want an on-prem version. And Matt has mentioned DOE, Department of Energy labs, or there's people that they're just not allowed to put their data out in the cloud. Defense customers, we have a lot of those. And so you have to keep a local copy. And then even if you do not have to, for commercial viability reasons, you would probably want to keep a local copy, because if you have all your data up in cloud A and the prices go up and cloud B comes along and they have something that's 25% of the cost, then you have to figure out how you get all your data out of cloud A. You have to pay those egress costs, land it, and then put it out to cloud B. And you probably don't have that space to land all your data, or you wouldn't be using cloud A in the first place. So if you design a system where you have on-prem S3 and then a backup in another place, you've got the geographic and the genetic separation that Matt was talking about, but you're in full control of your data. And for a lot of our customers, their data is their business. So if you're in a satellite data business, if you're in genomics and all the rest of that, in many ways, the instruments come and go, the computers come and go, even the storage systems come and go, all this stuff changes, but their data is the crown jewels of the company. So what would be more important than keeping that? So that's our take on it.
Yeah, I always use the term, Spectra Logic produces both hardware and software, and those are our products. The data we create when we make a sale or we build a product and we keep the QA cards, that's a byproduct of our business. So many companies out there that the ones and zeros that they create are their product they're going to sell. Media and entertainment is a great example of that. Movies and videos and commercials and all of that data has to be kept forever. I have a media and entertainment customer that decided that they need to slowly migrate to an S3 data bus. Everything in their system is going to talk S3, and once I pull it into a Scratch file system, I may be able to do render. I may be able to do QA here. I don't want to have a black screen ever come on the screen for a couple seconds, so that there's a QA system watching that video. And so there's all these different tools that they're applying to that video, but the in and out is S3, put get. And so they're going to slowly migrate off of file to S3, and that S3 will be their data bus.
Okay, and just maybe widening out a little bit. I mean, I know that storage industry, folks will be very familiar with spectrology, but perhaps not so much with architecture. So it'd be perhaps good just to understand quickly a little bit about architecture. We obviously you've explained quite a lot as we've gone through, but just a bit of a background of that'd be good.
Sure, I think I got this one, Matt. So our core product is called Media Flux. It's been around for about 20 years. It slowly evolved and got more and more capabilities. Where we're very different than a lot of American companies, rather than raising a lot of capital and making a lot of noise, we've slowly been evolving the product. As the company is self-funded. We have no outside investment. We're profitable, have been for about 10 years, but we're growing slowly and adding more and more features and capabilities to the product, rather than borrowing a lot of money to take a shot at trying something. So we've been having a chance with Spectra to evolve our product and add more capabilities. So we've added over time, we've added the ability to cluster, which means we can expand out. So what we do in essence is virtualize all the storage. And I do mean all the storage, whether it's hot to cold. And one of the big discriminators between us and the others is, and there's a lot of companies in the data management space now, is we work in the data path. We can work outside of it if you wanted to, but by working right in the data path, all the reads and writes go right through us. So we know where all the data is. But as an IT staff person, you could say something like, hey, any data that's more than 30 days old, move over here. And what's different is people go, oh yeah, I can do that. I can look at inode information and do the same thing. Well, we could say, okay, all the data that's 30 days old and is HIPAA, move over here, HIPAA privacy type of thing. We might have something where we want to say, well, the NIH, National Institute of Health, has paid for this data, and they want to keep this active for 2 years so that other scientists can look at it. So we can start setting policies about how the data is made available or accessible. And by that, we can just say, well, no, somebody's paid a lot of money to make this data available. We want to keep this on the hot tier. This other data we want to move into a colder tier. And over here, we might want to split it so we have a safe copy out in the cloud and a safe copy on a Black Pearl tape library. So what we do is virtualize how the data is managed. And then I would say the big differentiator between us and many others in the space is we're vendor neutral. So we work with everyone. A lot of folks sell our product like Dell, like HPE. But the thing is it's not like other products where they sort of add a little software piece to try and sell more of their hardware. We're not like that. We make no hardware, and we partner with best of breed athletes. So in terms of archive space, that's why we work with Spectra. They have the best products and the best price performance. Do the math. They have nice calculators to show their price points against the cloud. So we partner with them, but people also use us with Wasabi and Google Cloud and all the other S3 cloud-based products as well.
The other thing I would add to that is, once you deploy something where the data is going through it like that, changing the back end is trivial, right? If you all of a sudden you have a system that's gone end of life behind Arcitecta or Media Flux, and you need to upgrade some hardware, you put it back there. Your end users aren't seeing a difference. Your end users are still coming into the same points, accessing the data the same way, but magically in the background, data is being moved over from one older tier of data or older storage system that may be legacy now to something newer, faster, hotter, whatever it may be. It's not where you kind of say, hey, we're taking the system down this week and we're going to migrate to the new system, which is very common in the NAS world. And even there, within the NAS world, they could abstract that. So it's the idea that once you put this layer in, you get scale out, but you also get the ability to, the customer is no longer accessing the data directly. So that one layer allows you to do a whole bunch of work in the back end and not impact your customer base.
I would also add that we always enable the customer to pull their data out of our system and all the underlying systems. So if we went away or others, their data is never held hostage. And so one of the things that a lot of vendors try and do is just get in there and kick out the other guys and then try and hold the data hostage, right? To Matt's model, whether it's the cloud, but it happens on-prem too. We have folks that are on second or third generation of NAS systems, and it's a lot easier to just go with what you know and add to it. Whereas we actually encourage people to move their data around. If somebody came up with a tier that's a little warmer than tape and a little colder than spinning disk, like maybe a spin down disk, we would encourage people to put their data there. And so we encourage the movement of data. So one of the things that we don't do is we're not capacity based for pricing. The more you move your data, it makes no difference at all to us. So We charge by amount of concurrent users, and that way we encourage people to move and manage their data by a policy, as opposed to being like a tax on your data, getting it in or out of the cloud or whatever. If people have their data on something very efficient, like a Black Pearl tape library, that, you know, they're saving a lot of money by doing that.
Okay, and maybe just as we finish up, in terms of, I guess, both the collaboration of the two organizations, if there's anything you're able to share, and I appreciate there are no doubt some secrets that you'd rather not, but anything that we might anticipate in the future, and also individually as companies, you know, any sort of roadmap objectives that you can share. So I don't know who wants to go first, but that would be good.
Why don't you go first, Matt? I've done a bit of talking.
Sure. So from a collaboration, it's certainly going to continue. We have a very large, I think it's the largest HPC center in the Southern Hemisphere, going to be going live with our products. And I think that's one of those customers that's going to stretch both of us a little bit to get us to do new and better things to make that system work well. As far as Spectra goes, one of the things our goal is to make archive storage easier to use. So our product base is going far more software, far more data movement, far more data analytic. Same with Arcitecta, but it's not in the same vein. Our big push is to adopt cloud. What's the right way to say this? Adopt cloud, but use it in the proper way. We have customers that say we're going to cloud with really no idea of what that really means. And when we think about go to cloud, we want to allow people to use cloud services, allow people to use even cloud storage, but do it safely where you have a second copy on site, where you can exit that cloud at the drop of a hat and move to Wasabi, for example. Those are the things we're trying to get into our customer base, is give them on-premise S3, give them the tools to move data around. If they are forced to move to cloud, do it safely and be able to get back out of it.
Okay, and I'd say from our side, one of our big investments has been the database. We've tried various different databases, Postgres databases that a lot of our competitors use. We've tried MongoDB and all the rest of it. For the past 10 years, we've invested in our own database to be able to get the scalability up. So right now, we have a mutual customer that we're working with that has a goal to get to 100 billion files by the end of the year. And over time, they want a roadmap to get to 1 trillion files. These are massive models. That's what drives us, is trying to figure out how to solve the scalability problems, because we know if we can solve those huge big data problems with our database, then the little ones will be quite easy, right? And so we focus our energies on pushing that. So what you don't see about our company is behind the scene is a lot of the engineering is in stuff that people use off-the-shelf products for. So for example, our database is unique. It's designed for data management. We manage everything via metadata. But the metadata is extensible. You can expand it, you can add your own, you can pull out your data based on that. So we're continuing to invest there. So we're staying in the data management bucket. We make no hardware. Hardware vendors are going to come and go, and we're going to partner with whoever has the best tool for the job.
And maybe actually just one final promise, because you've given me some good time. In terms of your end users, you clearly outlined some that are way ahead of the curve, if you like, you know, doing clever stuff, but also people behind. Does it surprise you how many people perhaps still haven't understood fully? You mentioned, like, you know, they go into the cloud and think, well, hey, we're here, and then, oh right, I don't want to be here, I want to be somewhere else. Oh, that's going to be expensive. You just a little bit surprised that people don't understand their options fully and what's possible, what's not, or is that just, you know, the way life is, and you deal with it as it?
You know, that's an interesting question. I would say it this way: the director of IT knows, you know, the CIO has come down and said, we're going to cloud, and it trickles down, and the director of IT realizes we're done. This is going to ruin the company, kind of done, which is we're going to put our data in there, and in 2 years, he's going to ask for us to pull it all back, and it's going to cost us millions. So I think that when you come into an organization, it's not to say people are anti-cloud. What they are is anti-cost, right? They know that they can store it cheaper than putting it in the cloud. When you're at scale, and that's many, many petabytes, that scale allows you to buy at scale. Cloud vendors buy at scale. And there isn't a massive price difference between the equipment they're buying and the equipment that somebody at petabytes and putting it on their local data center floor is buying. Where cloud plays is when you have a 2 terabytes, 5 terabytes, a few hundred terabytes. That's where they get to, you know, conglomerate a whole bunch of users into one system. I always say vertical integration is one of those ideas that at scale you need to vertically integrate. And the analogy I used on a presentation a while back is Starbucks owns its own coffee grinders. They don't outsource their coffee grinding and then just make coffee, right? But that's their product is coffee. But they grind their own coffee, right? They probably toast their own beans. And so you look at these ideas of when you're at scale, you should be integrating as much of that at scale, making your own cloud, possibly using the cloud as a backup copy, possibly using the cloud to do extra compute. But you better keep a copy of your data on site so that you do have the ability to leverage out of that cloud in case they raise their prices, change their SLA, or things like that.
Yeah, I would agree totally on a lot of that. In fact, it's funny. So Matt mentions the CIO we also mentioned the CFO so COVID was kind of an awakening for the world, if you will, and a lot of it. Right before it, we helped a lot of customers move their data to the cloud. And then what happened is in a lot of places, especially if they were exploiting their data and they didn't have the incoming revenue, it was sort of like, whoa, why are we getting all these bills? And well, you've just outsourced all of that. And the CFO, well, wait a minute, how is this possible? If I leave my data on tape and it's parked, it's basically not costing me anything. Now I'm getting these monthly bills, but I'm not getting the income coming out because I don't have the same revenue coming in with COVID. What do I do? Right. So we've pulled a lot of those customers back out or sort of woken them up a little bit. Well, wait a minute. If you keep a copy of your data locally, then you're in total control of your destiny. You can move a copy out to the cloud so you have it in a different place if your building burns down or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense. But we've also seen a lot of people realize it's actually a lot cheaper to keep their data on site as well.
Okay, gentlemen, as I say, I've been really grateful for the time you've given me and for the insights you shared. So Graham and Matt, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.